This is the Comics Alternative on location at Valhalla Games and Comics. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Comics Alternative on location. We are here at Valhalla Games and Comics in Plano, Texas. That's right, you heard correctly. Valhalla Games and Comics in Plano, Texas. Now, what happened to Collected? You know, we're really in the exact same place that we have been for the past couple of years doing these monthly shows. But the shop has had a change of ownership in the month since I was here last. And we'll talk about that in a minute. But we are at Valhalla Games and Comics in Plano, Texas, which is located at 3100 Independence Parkway on the corner of Parker and Independence in Plano, Texas. So I'm here with some of our regulars. In fact, every single one of the people sitting at the table with me has been on the show at least 2, 3, probably more times. I have, I guess first we'll go with Krystle. She should have been here last month because we were talking about San Diego. You could have shared some of your experiences.
Yeah.
How you doing, Krystle?
I'm good. The panic attacks from San Diego are no more. So. Well, I have medicine for them now. So it's nice now.
Okay. And then sitting to my left is Nick. Nick, welcome again.
Thank you.
And then across from me is Craig. How are you, sir?
I'm fantastic, thank you.
Now, for those who keep up with our monthly shows, and we put out so much content that if you don't keep up with the monthly shows, that's okay. We wouldn't blame you. Probably too much to listen to. But we had decided last month on the August show that we would deal with, topic-wise, crime comics in September. And, you know, it goes without saying that October, next month, we're going to talk about horror comics.
Heck yeah.
Yes, of course.
So we're going to do that. But we thought that we would devote this month's show to crime comics. But this was before the official changeover from Collected to Valhalla. So let's talk a little bit about this first. And now, unfortunately, we don't have anyone formally associated, at least on an administrative level, with the shop ownership. Dave Larson, who is the new owner, I have communicated with him via email. Seems to be a very nice guy. He wants to be on the show, except he wasn't available this evening. Sabrina was going to sit down and talk with us for an extensive period of time, at least as of last night, and then this morning she came down with something. She's very ill, apparently. And so she said that Freddie would be talking to me. Of course, Freddie went off to see a movie.
Yeah.
So, you know, the shop's name may have changed, but at least the dynamics involved have not changed at all.
No, not at all.
So, in fact, there's one. This is kind of a rarity. There's one employee who is on duty, Brian, who we introduced last month on the show. He sat down and talked with us. He has since, I guess, had a hairdo change. But
it looks awesome. I kind of want to get a mohawk now myself.
Nice.
Yeah, so he's halfway there where, you know, Craig and I are.
Yeah, he's working on the inverse mohawk. Yeah.
Yes. But he may pop over and say a few things, but he's the only one here, so he's going to have to attend to the register. But, okay, so when did you guys learn about the shop changeover from Collected?
So I learned about it probably 3 weeks ago. The owner was here. He just introduced himself to Freddie. Took him out to Freddie and was talking about the changes that he wanted to make and basically tell him what the direction he wanted to take the short to. And then this was on a Tuesday, so I was picking up Freddie so we can do a Twitch show. And we do it together, so I usually pick him up when we go straight to that. So that's when he was there, and I was like, you know, who is this guy? And he just basically announced, I was like, oh, I'm the new owner, and we were just talking out, introducing myself. I'm like, oh, wow, okay. So that just happened. Mm-hmm. And so it was quite a surprise to me, and so that's when we started talking about, you know, the direction he wants to take the store and all that type of stuff. And we didn't talk for very long, but it was still very exciting. So he's very, very excited about taking over the store in this location and making it
Way better.
way better. Yes.
Yeah, I got to talk to him for like an hour. He's pretty awesome. The first thing I told him they needed to do to fix the shop was give Freddie a raise, and apparently he had already done that.
Because Krystle, and you should know, you used to work here.
I did. I used to work here. And so the fact that he'd already given Freddie a raise made me already really like him.
And he's fixed the air conditioning in here, and he's fixed other stuff too.
Ceiling that was leaking a little bit,
and
there
falling.
were a lot of problems, and he's come in and just picked it up.
Now he's got to do the bathroom. So once the bathroom's done,
priorities, people. Yes.
And there will finally be a sign above the door where people can see from the parking lot.
Yes,
true.
there will finally be
Valhalla.
a sign.
Witness.
Yes.
And the games wall is being expanded. It looks nice and full now, whereas before it was mostly
Patchy.
comics. It's going to be focused on comics and also on a lot of role-playing games, board games, tabletop, like Star Wars X-Wing, things like that.
Yeah, he's a big game. He's a big board gamer.
That's what I've heard.
He grew up
D&D.
playing the old D&D Generation 1 stuff, so he loves role-playing games. He's already expanded the role-playing stock.
Yeah, he's old. I'm just kidding.
So, yeah, I mean, their team-building experience was literally playing Dungeons & Dragons Series 1.
That's cool.
So I wanted to be on that, even though I don't work here.
Yeah, and he's really, really laid back and nice. So I think we're even gonna. He said that he'll let us shoot our little short webisode stuff here, which the three of us are involved in. So that's
All three
cool.
of you?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, they play themselves.
Pretty much.
I wrote it.
I tried to back out, and she basically said I wrote the part.
Yeah, I can't.
Okay, well, okay.
Yeah.
Maybe as a momentary tangent to our discussion of Valhalla, what's this webisode? What do you? Of what do you speak, my friend?
Okay, so about a year and a half ago, I started writing a short film, which turned into a feature film about Freddie's sad, pathetic life. And
Freddie, our Freddie.
yes,
our Freddie.
That's correct.
The one that skipped out to go to a movie. Yes.
Yes, good for him. And so, just like all the ridiculous stuff that we see working at a comic shop on a daily basis, I just started kind of jotting a lot of it down, and I threw a little bit of fiction in there, and then, yeah, it's pretty much written. I just need to go back and rewrite it to where it's an actual script form. So, which episode 1 is written in script form. I just want to do a few more tweaks, and then I'll send it out, I guess, on Friday. And we start filming this Saturday, and then on Sunday we shoot the part with Ming from Comic Book Men. He's going to be in town, and he wants to be part of the little webisode stuff. So, and then Leanna Vamp, also, she's a huge cosplayer from LA. She is super excited about doing a role, or having a role in it as well. And yeah, so I think it'll be really, really awesome. Sabrina's camera shy, so we have to find a character to play Sabrina, because Sabrina doesn't want to play herself.
Well, I can tell you. I mean, she used to be microphone shy, but she got over that.
Yeah,
To
baby steps
talk
with
with
her.
us
Baby steps.
quite extensively on the podcast. But okay, so this is going to be, or it is, turning into a full script. But you're doing webisodes that will, or test runs into the narrative.
Okay, so basically, what happened was when I was writing a full-length movie for the film festivals, the rules for film festivals are super strict, and I couldn't show anything online. I couldn't, it had to be very sacred and quiet, and not to mention extremely expensive. We were looking at entering it into 6 to 7 Texas film festivals, or Southwest film festivals, and to bring just Freddie, Adam, myself, and one other 4 people just to be there and support it. We were looking at already over, I think, $5,000 for just entering and then traveling to those shows. And so I was like, that's a lot of money. And I actually started building my own set, which I sank about $650 into. And I just got really irritated because I can't show any licensed product. Well, a comic shop has all licensed product stuff. So what I'm doing is I said, you know what, screw it. I don't really care to make money. This project's not about money for me. Yes, it would be helpful to have extra cash to get the project up and going, and that's another reason it's taken forever and a day to get it up. But with the new owner, I was telling him, and he seemed really excited about it. So we're just going to put it up on YouTube. We're not going to monetize it. It will be making no money. So I'm starting a Patreon account. If you guys would like to donate to Freddy's Sad Pathetic Life,
which is sadly not the title of the film.
It should be. It's actually called Off the Rack. And one of the long story short, it's about taking a comic off a rack. So Freddy's stolen comic. So it's gonna be really fun. We do have to fill in 2 more female characters, and then our cast is pretty much complete, which is awesome. Nick, we're working on around everyone's schedule. Nick's gonna be out for like 3 weeks, but I'm also gonna be out. Is it in October?
Yeah, it's the end of October, early November.
Yeah, so I'm gonna be out most of October anyways for shows. So I've got New York, Colorado, and San Antonio, so that's fine. So, but yeah, we would like to release at least 1 episode every month. That's kind of like our goal.
Wow. See, I knew nothing of this, so when you mentioned
it's
it,
cool.
Like,
I'm pretty
what?
quiet about it.
Yeah.
What is this?
I don't want everybody know about it until we kind of were closer.
Okay.
So
playing, your cards close to the vest.
Yeah.
That's good.
I'm writing a comic too.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you're
What
just
aren't
getting
you
creative
doing?
all over the place.
Yeah. Well, I'm looking for a band. If anyone knows anybody in a band, I have 4 songs previously written. I just need to.
Okay, so how many entertainment media do you have a hand in?
I went to school for all this shit.
Okay, so there's cosplaying, there's screenwriting, there's comics writing, there's music that you mentioned.
I like to write stories.
My lord.
Wow.
I like stories.
Wow. Well, that was a very informative side note to what we were talking about.
If you know any musicians, send them my way.
Yes, get in touch with the Comics Alternative, and I'll forward it on to Krystle Star. So, yeah, it's good that the new owner is really cool about letting you do things
and
here.
we actually wrote the script dealing with false, fake, made-up, bad owners, and the new owner actually really likes the idea of this, so he's going to keep it in there, and he even wants it to have Valhalla written on the front. So.
And you said fictional bad owners.
Yes,
So
Ron and Brent are
nothing-
badass. Ron and Brent are not the people I wrote it off of, but it wouldn't be as entertaining without having a couple of crazy weird things happening, and they're not bad. Y'all can watch the shorts. They're not bad, but we want them to be hard,
It's the
like that boss, like your boss.
Everybody goes
Everybody's
to work.
boss.
Everyone usually doesn't like their boss for the most part.
Right.
So it's something that relates to the audience very
Exactly.
well.
Right.
Yeah, so it'll be about that. And Mike plays Freddy's arch nemesis, and Mike's the nicest guy in the world. So Mike.
Anderson?
Yeah.
Mike Anderson, yeah.
He will also be in the film.
Yeah.
He's the a-hole. He stole Freddy's script.
Okay. Well, keep us informed of the progress
Will do.
of this endeavor. So there's a lot going on. Obviously, as we were talking about, we have a change of ownership at the shop. Krystle is a one-person pop culture generator. But let's get to the topic that we had planned on discussing for this month, and that is crime comics. If you guys want to segue into that,
Yeah.
By the way, that was a not a very subtle segue. I just hey, I'm going to
perfect.
change the trajectory of the conversation.
That's how it should
to crime, but
Bluntness works.
now Craig, you came as you usually do when we do these things, extremely prepared. This is good. This is good because I'm a professor, and it always impresses me to see people who are prepared when they come to class, so to speak. And you've done this before. I remember what was it when we were talking about? Oh yes, race and ethnicity in comics. You came with a stack, and now we decided to do not Nicholas that you should have. Maybe a little shame would go a long way. But yeah, you came with a big old stack of crime comics. So let's start with you and what you have here and what you're reading and some of these things I have read.
I started off with The Fix, which is by what's his name? I know his last name is Spencer.
Nick.
Yeah, Nick Spencer and
Steve Lieber.
Steve Lieber. There it is, right there.
And
Steve
in fact,
Lieber,
this has
Nick
a special
Spencer.
place in Sabrina's heart and in the Comics Alternative heart. You know why? She mentioned this. She teased it.
She did tease
before
this.
it was released, and she mentioned this on an on-location show several months ago. And then I think it was when Steve Lieber heard the show, which is great. Word gets out. He got in touch with Sabrina and said, "Hey, I heard you on the Comics Alternative talking about the upcoming first issue of the Fix," and sent a really nice illustration to her.
Nice. Yeah, this comic book is it's really kind of interesting. So, talk about crime. It's these guys that the comic book starts off with them robbing a senior center.
Sounds about right.
And all that type of stuff, and then you learn later that they're actually cops. So what's the best way of both rounds? You got cops actually being bad guys. The guy wanted to be a bad guy his whole life, but then watched this cop be able to do anything he wanted, and decided that's what he really wanted to be. So it's called The Fix for a reason, is that they got into big trouble, and now they're in big trouble with a very, very scary boss guy who's very centered with himself.
Oh, yeah.
So now they're kind of being forced to do even a bigger jobs than they're used to pulling. It's very, very funny. It's these cops are idiots, but because of that makes the comic really, really humorous and fun, and you kind of want to know what's going to happen next with these idiots. And they're dealing with very, very scary people, and how they, for some reason, they're not as scared as they should be. It's like...
Well, you know, that's one of those that I've been meaning to read. It's been on my to-read list for a while, and now we're about to get the first trade, so I've got some catching up to do. But I got the sense from the solicit and the art and hearing people talk about it that this is something that is reminiscent of, let's say, crime, almost sitcom TV shows.
That's a great way of putting it. Yeah, it's a very kind of like a crime sitcom. Is these guys are put in very just bizarro situations and how they try to get it out. They also are trying to make, trying to bring back the buddy cop movie because they know this producer, and so they're always trying to find some film angle because they all live in Los Angeles, and that's what apparently you do in Los Angeles.
I mean, one of the big things that they face is the most ruthless TSA dogs out there that can smell anything, and they have to get past that. And it's the cutest little dog ever. And you're like,
it's this little beagle dog, and this dog is trained as a drug dog, and so it travels LAX, and it finds, it's made like hundreds of thousands of busts already. It's like everyone's just in awe of the hero dog. And they, of course, think, oh, well, it's just a dog. They'll love me because we love dogs. Well, the dog can smell that they're criminals, apparently, and hates them. It's like...
absolutely silly.
It's just, if you guys need some humor, it may not be as dark as some crime noir type stuff, but it's really, really well done, and then the story's really funny, and it's very enjoyable. I look forward to it at least every month, just to say, oh good, now I got something lighter to make life a little bit happier.
Definitely.
And it's got great coloring.
It is. It's the colorist is really, really, really good too. It starts off when he's remembering stuff how it's black and white, and then when it's actually him, it's really bright colors and stuff like that.
It's cool how it changes the mood.
It's almost like the brightness of LA and the busyness of life out there really pops out of the panels really well.
Yeah, it's a crazy book. I recommend it, guys. If you need some humor or just some entertaining stuff, but yet want to stay with some crazy characters that are trying not to be the super good guy. I recommend these. Everybody seems to be on the fix, even the internal affairs officer. So it's bizarre. It's a very bizarre book, but it's a lot of fun.
Definitely.
And that's something that you're reading too, right?
I am actually, yes.
In fact, to give Nick all credit, he's the one that turned me on to it. He says, here, you really need to be reading this.
After the show last week, I was like, oh, let's go look at crime noirs on the wall, and I pointed that out because Sabrina actually had shown it to me, and she was like, this is absolutely amazing, you have to read it, and I absolutely loved it. It's one of the things that I look forward to every month as well, of just, this is what I have to read pretty much first.
I have not read it yet, but it looks amazing.
But you should read it.
But yeah, she's been looking through
issue 3. What really caught my eye was her riding on a giant corn, like she's humping a giant corn in a bathing suit with a
So one of the characters they meet is a child actress who's
humping corn.
Yeah, check it out. Corn humper right there.
One of the characters they
I
meet
see.
is a child actress, and now she's finally getting to the adult part, and she's trying to do
Like Miley Cyrus.
crazy stuff.
It's Miley
Yeah, like
Cyrus.
exactly
It's
like
exactly what
Miley
they based it off
Cyrus.
of.
And so everything that crazy Miley Cyrus do, this character will do.
Well, hopefully not, but
It gets really
keep flipping.
close. And everything, of course, to her, the cop is freaking out, but because she does, like, she'll go up there and start attacking cars with a baseball bat.
That's Britney.
For her,
That's Britney Spears, not Miley.
but to her, it's all planned because it's for her to get in these tabloid magazines, and that's how she
See,
keeps getting
that's
paid.
Britney.
Yeah, there you go.
Yep.
Mine's just a dress. Kidding.
And all that stuff. And he's the bodyguard. He has to protect her, and she's insane. And then some really terrible stuff happens to her later, and we're trying to figure out.
I won't say it. But
Yeah, I recommend you picking it up. It's one of the crazy situations he gets into, and at the end of the book, he's like, "What just happened?" It's like,
And you're thinking the exact same thing.
because it's not at all what you think that's where it's going to go.
Nope.
No.
It's just-
Now, tonally, a very different comic I see you have in front of you. And so far, I guess up until today, we had only one issue of this. And,
yeah, the second issue just came out today.
Right, and this is Jonathan Hickman's The Black Monday Murders. And this is something that we discussed on the Comics Alternative, I think,
Yes.
about 3 weeks ago?
Yes. And so this book is very, very dark, and it's written more as a religious deal. Literally, the god Mammon, the god of greed, the god of currency, he's a real being, and he made deals with the human race, and that the entire stock market is basically his church, and he demands his cut, and that's why the stock market crashes at certain times. Are you willing to pay these types of prices? And it's now. It talks. Most of the comic book is literally talking about how the stock market got started, and then what happened at the big crash, and a lot of history stuff about who these people are and all that. And then it gets into what we're really going on to it. One of the big higher up people that is, a very prominent member on the board of directors of a very, very prominent bank is murdered. Very mysteriously, he's literally pinned up, and he's looking like a clock. And
That part was like seriously disturbing.
Yeah, it's
And
if
he's nude and you
you're-
see curlies. It's very graphic.
yeah, if you're
That one
fans
should be in a bag.
if you're fans of what was it, what was the one about all the seven
Sex?
deadly sins? Seven.
Yeah.
If you're fans of Seven, this is a comic book for you. It's very, very dark. It's very stuff. So, anyways, now we got this cop investigating this murder, and he seems to be. We only get to see him for a few pages, but he seems to be aware of the magic that's in this world. In fact, that he gets. One of his callers is literally goes up to a guy and shoots him 6 times. And the only reason he's not in jail is because they went to his house and found the heads of 7 of his victims and his next victim tied up to the bed.
Now, have you read the second issue that came out today?
I have not yet had a chance to read it. I just got it, and so I'm looking forward to reading it because I want to know what happens next. It's like,
And the reason I was asking is because in your description of what I guess was the first issue...
sorry.
No, that's okay. You seem to be more assured about some of the things that are going on there than at least Andy and I were when we talked about this, because I think there are a lot of teases about what could or could possibly be, or what could or couldn't be the case in terms of this larger mythological godlike figure,
Yeah, and I may be, and that just may be me putting my own
it sounds,
sense of...
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. It's just we weren't entirely sure, but I think that kind of uncertainty was baked into that first issue.
And I think, and I may have put my own where I think the story is going to go. When I read stuff, sometimes that happens. I'm like, oh, I think this would be cool if it went in this direction, and then I'm delightfully surprised when it doesn't. Or sometimes, or maybe not so delightfully surprised when it does. But yeah, I did, I don't know, the detail that he went just through the history of it about balancing the scales and all of this stuff is really, really well done. So the first book may be a little bit slow for some people because it talks a lot about the history and how you achieve power and all of this type of stuff. And then the last 5 pages or so actually deal with the actual murder of today and what is happening. So in a sense, but I liked it. I liked seeing all that history right up front, and it was really cool. I like this book. I'm really curious to see how it's going to go from here.
Well, you mentioned the story for some people maybe being a little slow because of the setup. And, I've heard other people talk about certain things about Hickman's writing that they're not overly enamored of. And, some of it deals with, I guess, the design of the book. So, for instance, you can have a fairly substantive issue, but you don't have, proportionally speaking, as much story time compared to some of the other images or design there. Well, I mean, that's the kind of writer and also illustrator that Jonathan Hickman is, right?
Yes.
He has a strong background in design. And the way I look at it is that in this issue, this first issue of the Black Monday Murders, he does with the story in terms of setting up the context something that's analogous to what he does visually with design to set things up visually. So it's the design of the story, the foundations of the story that he's wanting to tell, that he spends a lot of time covering here. And, I think that makes for a much thicker narrative.
Yeah.
But I can see where some people who want bam, 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 action, action,
Right.
action, may not...
See,
that may not appeal to them.
I enjoyed it as you did too, because I loved all that world building that he did, and all that stuff in there. It was like amazing. Usually, don't get that much world building in a first issue. Usually, it's built over a long period of time, and he's like, "No, I'm just going to put it right here."
And he did something similar with East of West.
Yeah,
with the first issue. Yeah,
exactly.
And The Dead and the Dying.
Yes,
I mean that's just his kind of.
That's what he likes to do.
Right.
Yeah. And even when he was working on the Avengers, you could tell he was really spending a lot more time design-wise than he was punching people in the face. And some people didn't like it, but it was that's the way he likes to write. And
he's no longer doing anything with Marvel.
No, not right now. No, he said that he was after what was the last event? I can't remember all their names now. But anyways, after that last event where it blew up all the universes, he was done with Marvel for a time.
Not Civil War.
No, that was before.
It was
Secret Wars. The second Secret Wars.
Yeah, Secret Wars 2, Electric Boogaloo.
Yeah, that was it. Yeah,
something.
I'm sorry, I forgot all their names. But he said he did all of that, and he did all of that, and he did a full run of the Avengers, setting up all of the Secret Wars, and he said after that he was exhausted, that he was taking time off from Marvel because he did a lot of stuff for them, and so he's exhausted. And so this is his first book outside of what he did with the Avengers and Secret Wars. And so you can tell he's put a lot of thought into it.
Definitely.
Well, another title there is, again, a very tonal shift from the one we were just talking about, and that is the Baker Street Peculiars.
Now, the Baker Street
miniseries that just recently wrapped up.
Yes, a miniseries that wrapped up not too long ago, and I reread again, by Roger Landridge and Andy Hurst and Fred Streising. This book, if you love just Sir Arthur Conan Doyle stuff, or if you love the whole crime stuff, this one is kind of a Sherlock Holmes deal, but it's solved by kids. And it has Andy Hurst, very, very noticeable art. If you're a fan of his, you'll recognize his art style very, very up front.
Someone we bring up often on the show because he is local.
He is local, and he's amazing. And so the story is that the statues are coming to life, and no one knows why, but no one really believes it. Statues can't come to life, and of course these children do. They are chasing these statues all over the place, trying to figure out what's going on. And one of the characters, a girl, her biggest fan is Sherlock Holmes, and she wants to grow up to be Sherlock Holmes. But of course, it's set back in the 1800s, and girls, they don't become detectives; they stay home and be housewives. But she's about to prove them wrong, and so she wants to solve this case. And then she gets to meet her hero, Sherlock Holmes. And he says, well, right now you can do this case because I got so many other cases to solve. And you guys can do this one, and I'll give you $1 a week. And so it's these guys' adventures, and their kids trying to figure out what's going on with this very, very weird case of the statues coming to life. Very different tonally from the Black Sunday Murders. It's very upbeat. It's very social. You get to know these kids very, very well, and it's just, if you love, if you ever remember cartoons growing up, or kids were able to solve these murders, or the Hardy Boys mystery murders, or the Nancy Drew mystery murders, it's kind of that style of a book,
Right.
And it's just a lot of fun, and it's great to see how these kids think their way through very, very scary situations, so don't worry about the kids. They don't beat anybody up. They have to use their minds and think about stuff and how they're going to solve these things, just like their hero, Sherlock Holmes.
Right, a different kind of comedy from The Fix, but less a crime book.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. It's really, really cool. I recommend this one. It was, like I said, if you love Andy Hirsch's work, that's a reason to get it right there.
Mm-hmm.
It's amazing.
Oh, definitely. So Nick, now you're the one who introduced The Fix to Craig, as he mentioned. So what other crime books, let's say recent crime comics, have been interesting you?
I've read all the ones that Craig has except for Baker Street. And then also I'm reading Renato Jones' 1%, which is a story about, for lack of a better term, a vigilante who is attacking the 1% of society, the richest, most extravagant people that they hold various parties and masquerades. But there is a darker side to that world where, since they are so rich, they are allowed to do things that are not 100% morally correct. And so he's basically going around and taking them out and bringing justice to these people that they're taking advantage of.
It's funny, I hadn't thought of Renato Jones as a crime comic, but I guess it is. Mm-hmm. Yeah, because as Kanka and I were considering, actually, we're planning, and we're still going to do this, I'm assuming, to do a 2-part series in October where we will devote 2 weekly shows to talk about recent crime comics. And the reason we're doing this over 2 shows is because there's just been a lot of new crime comics recently, and also new ones that are starting up over the next few weeks. So when we were brainstorming what possible titles to discuss, that one didn't occur to me.
Yeah, it's not like full like crime noir per se,
right?
But I think it fits the bill fairly well.
Well, I mean, and then, this introduces, the question of definitions, and this is something that I know that Andy and I we'll talk about when we do the regular review show. I guess our first one on crime comics, because not all noir comics are crime, not all crime comics or detective comics, and there are also overlaps between crime and other genres. Because when you think about it technically, the vast majority of the superheroes are considered crime comics, right?
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
I guess depending on the storyline. Classic example, Batman is a detective. He is in detective comics, right?
Yeah,
exactly.
So, how do you differentiate that from, the superhero genre proper, if there ever is such a thing? So there's a lot of fuzzy area where there's quite a bit of crossover here. But I guess the Renato Jones, from what I've read, and not much, and I guess as much as you, would fit into the crime.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it's very dark. The things that they cover that the 1% are able to do is pretty horrific. I was quite appalled, but it makes the character more relatable in the fact of, okay, why are you doing this to the rich? Are you just singling them out? And then you see these things, and he is, in my eyes, perfectly justified in what he's doing of taking out these people, because they are definitely a scourge to society. So, have you been reading that, Craig, at all?
I've read the first issue of it, and man, is it violent. If you need violence in your life, that book is for you. It's a very Punisher type book.
And I know you like that. And
I do like the Punisher. It doesn't bother me at all. I tend to like the violent superheroes like the Punisher and Wolverine. It's a really, really good book. But just fair warning for people who don't like super violence, this is not your book. It's very, very violent, but it's really, really good.
I mentioned, the crossing of genres where you have crime and something else. One title that, again, and this is something else that we discussed last month on the Comics Alternative, was Kill or Be Killed.
Oh, yeah.
The Ed
Yeah.
Brubaker. And, that is an example of crime and horror, which, Brubaker is known for, especially with Femme Fatale. I mean, when I think of crime comics, Ed Brubaker is one of the first names that comes to mind. And he's done, straight down the line crime comics like, the Criminal series, definitely.
Oh, definitely.
And then more recently with the Fade Out. But,
even his Captain America stuff has a very crime
that's right,
work
yeah.
to it.
And in fact, I like Captain America well enough. I won't go out of my way to read Captain America, but I tell you, one of the I guess the storylines, plural, that I've gone out of my way over the past several years to read. The Brubaker, his run on that.
Yeah.
I think I have most, if not all, of those stories.
Yeah,
so
those are the ones I
work.
usually tell people who say, I like Captain America. It's like, well, then you need to read the Brubaker.
Right.
Because that's what, everything you've seen on the movies, it's all coming from him.
Yeah.
And,
but with the Kill or Be Killed, he's doing something similar to what he was doing with Femme Fatale.
yeah.
Or Fatale, not Femme Fatale. Fatale, yeah.
Yeah, that one is a really, really good book about this guy that at first thinks he really, really wants to kill himself. His whole life is depressing and all this type of stuff. And then, of course, he makes the leap and then decides midway that he didn't want to kill himself at all, but now he's following and this demon-like character or this supernatural-like character basically saves him and says, but I saved your life, and now you got to repay me once a month. You got to give me a life, and so now, of course, he thought it was all a bad dream and all that stuff. And then, of course, by the end of the month, he's starting to get sicker, and then this demon goes up there and it's like, well, let me show you what's the problem. And he breaks his arm, and just terrible things happen to him until he realizes, I have to go out and kill somebody or I'm going to die. And he keeps deciding he doesn't want to die, so someone else has to die. And then he decides also that not only does the person have to die, because the supernatural thing didn't care who you killed, but he said you can even kill bad guys. And so he starts to research on who the rottenest people are near where he lives, so he can go out there and kill them, and that way he would feel better, because they're bad guys anyways. It is a good. If you love Brubaker, this is really up your alley, because he has a way of writing that just gets you interested in these characters, even though normally you probably wouldn't like them, but yet you're interested in this guy from the get-go, and his roommates and all of that type of stuff, and you just kind of want. It's like, how is this guy going to get out of this? Yeah. So that was just the first issue, and the second issue is him trying to commit his first murder, and that's. It, of course, does not go as planned. So, yeah, that one's another good one to go pick up. That was a lot of fun. And, of course, it's Brubaker, so I usually pick up whatever he does. So.
Oh, yeah. And I mentioned a moment ago the question of superhero comics being crime comics. And as I'm looking over here, I see on the bottom row of the wall of new titles, The Spirit.
Yes.
Or I guess technically the title is Will Eisner's The Spirit. Wow. The relatively recent, let's say, Dynamite series.
Yeah.
And again, that's another one that we've discussed on the review show. But I mean, this raises the question that I would say that The Spirit definitely is a crime comic. But would you consider this title a superhero title? Would you consider The Spirit a superhero? Because some people do. And
I may be one of them, because, I guess it's the way I define superheroes. Superheroes are, for lack of a better word, they're kind of like gods. No matter what, you can always depend on them to do the right thing. They're supposedly humans, but Spider-Man may get into trouble, but he will end up doing the right thing eventually. And as long as you live your life like Spider-Man, you will be doing the right thing. And the Spirit's kind of like that. He gets himself into a lot of trouble, may make some questionable decisions, but in the end, he will do the right thing and solve the crime. He's of course a normal human. I can't even really call him Batman-esque. He's not the super greatest fighter that ever lived, but yet because he's normal human, he's able to see things that normal, super people with superpowers won't see, and he can solve very, very weird cases. And
well, see, by that same definition that you're laying down, then when you consider a character like Sherlock Holmes a superhero,
Sherlock Holmes would be a superhero to me because he is more than human. He can do things like he can just look at you and say, "Oh, obviously you do this profession. You can do all that just by, oh, I noticed from the lint on your shirt that you come from this area and you did all this." Real people don't do that. But he can do it just by looking at you. So he has superhuman powers. And so, yes, Sherlock Holmes to me would be a superhero. And in the end, he's uncorruptible. No one can go up and pay him off and say, oh, do this or look the other way or do all that stuff. Sherlock Holmes will always end up doing the right thing. It may take him a while to get there, but he will do the right thing. And that's why Moriarty is so evil. He's a supervillain. He will always try to be evil. He will always try to take over something.
Okay. Let me throw, because since we're dealing with definitions now, let me throw this out. Now, again, by the parameters of your definition of these certain detective figures being superheroes, and it's not a comic, but where would you put Columbo? Because he has acute abilities that other individuals, police or otherwise, do not have.
Yeah.
He's uncorruptible. He always does the right thing. Now,
wouldn't that be superheroic? Because we know in real life, unfortunately, those characters don't exist.
Okay, but what you're doing is you're taking the words super and then heroic or super and then hero, and they're not connected.
Maybe it's overgeneralized, I guess.
I'm
sorry.
When you put super and hero together to represent a figure or a genre, then that becomes something else entirely. And maybe I'm a little more conservative in my definition of superhero than you are. But
I tend to be a little bit more optimistic on.
Because see, I wouldn't call Denny Colt or the Spirit a superhero. I mean, to me, maybe a pulp hero. Given his roots, would make a little more sense. But again, some people do consider him part of superhero history, and I understand that.
Without him, you wouldn't have a lot of the superheroes that we have today. I mean, there is a lot of, the Spirit paved a way for people like Batman and other characters like him. Because he can do stuff that no one else can do.
Well, Batman appeared before.
Well, true. That's very true. I apologize. But a lot of the direction that Batman went later on is because of the Spirit.
Well, and also keep in mind that in the creation of the Spirit, which was that newspaper insert, right? Will Eisner resisted turning him into a superhero. And in fact, one of the concessions he made was to give Colt a mask, have him wear a mask, and that's really about the only superhero-y part of his wardrobe. I mean, you say,
he has that long
too.
Trench coat too. That could be
that's
almost
detective.
Cape. Yeah,
I mean that's definitely crime. I mean that's not. I mean,
but it's sometimes drawn like it's a cape as he's leaping through stuff, and I know that may be splitting apples and oranges, but it's still the way it's the way certain people draw it. It's kind of a superhero book. I know you don't want it to be that way, but it kind of is. And
no, it's not like I don't want it to be that way. I'm just saying. Now, you're talking about the way that his trench coat is drawn cape-like.
Yeah, that makes sense. Running across.
Oh, that makes sense because he has been used as a figure definitely since Eisner's time. And so what people do with him now, I think, is very much informed by the history of the superhero genre in comics. I mean, that goes without saying. But then again, there are other figures who have given that treatment as well. I mean, I remember, for some reason, this just popped into my head, when Kenneth Branagh's Henry V came out, when we first see Henry enter the scene, right, on camera, Batman, that is exactly what it looks like. No, it is. And that came out the same year as Tim Burton's Batman. Because when you see the cape that Henry is wearing, they had to have shot that very much with, some kind of superhero story in mind, because he does come across as very dark in this cape flowing behind him. You can't help but think of Batman. Anyway, that may be an obscure example. But getting back to Denny Colt, when Eisner created him, I mean, he did not want a superhero story. Yet, they wanted, the publishing wanted, him to create something like that. So he kind of compromised. And so that's this kind of hybrid figure that has somewhat sort of superhero-y feel to it, but not exactly.
Yeah, I can see where you're coming from.
Yeah.
And like I said, I know I was being too general, but that's okay.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you could say something similar about characters.
But, you have detective comics. Like, TV is a great example. You're not only talking about Columbo, you're also talking like Monk. And those style of characters.
Monk is a great example.
Yeah, you got
more contemporary example than Columbo.
Style of characters are more like superheroes than if you watch TV dramas like L.A. Law or any stuff like that, where they try to be more realistic, so to speak. I know it's still a fictional story, but they're trying to be as more realistic, where their people could be corrupted or could look the other way and then get in trouble for it later. Or Monk and Columbo and other characters like him, old Ironsides, if you want to talk about it, those guys are uncorruptible. I mean, no matter what, they will always do the right thing. Even if their family's in danger, they will still do the right thing. Or if their friends are in trouble, they always know how to escape from the situation.
Why doesn't that make them heroes instead of superheroes?
Yeah, well, because I guess I'm not explaining myself very well, and I apologize. That makes them superheroes because if their family's in trouble, they will find a way to save the family. Or heroes, sometimes, and I know this is a terrible way of saying it, they don't always succeed. In fact, a person, an FBI agent came in to TI one day and he was trying to discuss basically how he's a hostage negotiator. And he was trying to say how that can help seal the deal in certain circumstances for management and all that type stuff. But all we wanted to talk to him about was FBI cases. And one of the stuff he was talking to was a guy literally holed up a bank. He had all these hostages. And he had to decide, should I kill this guy? Because he had already had the snipers up there. Do I kill this man or do I try and talk him out? Can I talk him out of it before he kills somebody? And he talked very honestly about cases where somebody had to die before he shot that guy. And then he also talked very honestly about how bad he felt because he had to kill the bad guy because he failed. He failed to talk him out and save his life. And that's what happens, he's still a hero. He saved a whole bunch of people, but he didn't save everybody. Superheroes save everyone.
Not always. Oh no, the superhero genre is littered with examples where someone dies, unfortunately.
But you look at we're talking about TV dramas, Monk and all them. All those people are saved. The only person who died is the person in the beginning, or Murder, She Wrote. The only person who died was the person in the beginning that get the movie started. Everybody else gets to live because they solved the case just in time before the next murder. And same thing with superhero stories. Yes, people do die, but it's to get the story started, and so then everybody gets to live after the end of the story. They save more people. That's what makes them super. They try to save everybody. Superman tries to save everybody, and that's his whole thing. I'm going to save everyone. And that's why the recent movie failed, is because he tries to kill everyone. And all them. That's what makes them super. I am going to rescue everyone.
See, I'm right with you in terms of the character descriptions of defining, what makes certain heroes in certain genres the way that they are and what defines them. I'm not with you, though, on the kind of broad application of the word superhero.
That's fair. Yeah. I'm okay with that. I know I tend to do that probably over because maybe I read too many comic books.
Yeah.
But it's if you look at real life and stuff like that, there's a lot of, you see it on the news about, these cops were able to save these work group of people, but at the expense of other people dying. Superman and Batman would have saved everybody, and it's because they can do that because they're super.
So we've talked about and played around with definitions of the kind of genre bending and blurring examples, recent especially, of crime comics. What are some, let's say, I don't know, what would you call them, straight down the line, more classic, working unambiguously within the genre? And of course, genre can be really fuzzy. Still, but something that is unmistakably a crime comic that you guys have read.
Criminal by Brubaker.
Yeah, Criminal.
Criminal is an outstanding one where he picks just a criminal guy, and we follow him through a very limited series, even though Criminal went on for a long time. But you only get the story of that one particular criminal only lasts so many issues, and then he moves on to a different criminal. It's very, very much in the criminal book, and it stays in that book. Another one,
it's still a property that he keeps coming back to every now and again with these one-shots.
The other one I could think of off the top of my head, 100 Bullets, I would put in there, where what would you do if you had one bullet that's completely untraceable? And no matter, you could shoot that and it'd be completely untraceable and you can get away with murder. And what would you do with that type of power? Very, very criminal. They tend to deal with, we call them gangbangers or whatever, but it tends to be people that are down and out on their luck. And, what would they do with that type of power? And it's a very great comic. I highly recommend that one too. Those are the two off the top of my head I can think of.
Well, in fact, Brian Azzarello reminds me he has a new crime title coming out, Moonshine.
Oh, really?
Is it Moonshine or Moonshiners? It's probably Moonshine, I think. But again, it's one of those genre blending stories where it's crime and also, I think, God, I can't remember the solicit. I think it's horror. Maybe I'm wrong here. Maybe listeners to this will say, no, it's something else entirely. You don't know what you're talking about. But I know it's not straight down the line crime story like you have in 100 Bullets, but that's going to be coming out again through soon through Image.
I'll look for that one.
Yeah,
that's really
I'll
cool.
have to look that up.
Yeah, what about you, Nick? Do you got one off the top of your head? That
I don't typically read straight crime. Nothing really comes to the top of my head right now. I usually read more like crime horror or crime sitcoms or things like that, but
with crime horror, did you read Weird Detective?
No, I didn't.
Because that's like crime comics with Lovecraftian twist.
it was kind of weird.
Yeah.
It was.
There's so much out there. It's hard to read everything. Yeah, no. I'm pretty light on crime noir, sadly, and just crime comics in
I was
general.
trying to think if there's some others that may be out there that were really kind of fun.
Well, there are a couple of titles coming up that I'm really looking forward to. Titan Comics. Over the past couple of years, they're doing more and more.
Titan put out some really cool stuff.
Right,
yeah.
and Titan, the publisher, I guess Titan Books, has been putting out for a while. They inherited or they acquired the hard crime series of crime novels, and I remember it was not. Maybe it was last month, or maybe it was the month. I guess it was last month. They solicited the first issues of two series that are going to be in the comics line of hard crime, coming out from that. And one title is called Peep Show, and then the other one, I can't remember the name of that. But those are going to be coming out, I think, fairly early, or at least the first half of October.
Okay.
So those are something to watch out for. And one of the reasons why I mention it is because, if it's not like a larger profile property like Doctor Who or like Sherlock, sometimes, or even Tank Girl, I think that sometimes the Titan comics, some of those may fall under the radar of a lot of readers.
Yeah.
And this is one that I think, even if people do keep up with Titan, they may not be apt to pick
because
it
I
up.
agree, because most of the thing, even Titan itself, a lot of their advertisements is always towards the doctors. And that's unfortunate, because they do have some really other cool comics out there that maybe they could shed some light on too themselves. But that one sounds interesting. I may have to look forward to that one.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to what those are like as well, because we definitely want to include those two titles, those first issues, in the October shows on crime.
Beautiful.
I was thinking about another creator, because we were talking about creators who were known for crime. Obviously at Brubaker, there's Brian Azzarello, but someone else who does quite a bit of work with crime narratives in one form or another is Ed Brisson. Because he had that, what was going to be a series, but ended up being a limited series of The Violent.
Oh, that's right, yeah. Okay, I remember that one. Yeah.
And he's also pulled together, what was it, last year, I think, that anthology of crime stories.
Okay, I've heard about that one,
Yeah.
but I never got a chance to read it or anything like that.
Yeah. So, he's someone who, I don't know if you wanted to discuss, or if you read The Violent.
I did not.
It's been a long time since I read The Violent, so I maybe apologize for not remembering all of it.
Yeah, and God, now that I think about it, he also had that other series there was a crime story through, it was Boom, I believe. Maybe I'm wrong there. But this started at about the same time that The Violent did last fall. And it was the last job? The last something.
The Last Job. That was the one about was that the one with the bank robbers that said this is going to be the last one, and then, we're going to be set free, and then...
No, this is...
okay, I'm sorry, I may have blended that in with something else.
I've only read the first issue. This is where someone who was, a really effective hitman has, been out of the game for a while, and he comes back through various reasons.
Yeah, okay, I remember. I've read the first issue on that one now, too. I'm sorry, I mixed it up with another book. Yeah. I do remember that one. It's really pretty good. It's pretty dark. Like I said, this hitman, he's out of the business, he's retired, and I can't remember what the event that set in motion that is coming out of retirement.
Right. It's kind of like forced out.
Yeah, and now really bad stuff is going to happen because he is really, really that good. And, it was pretty bright, pretty dark, but it was pretty violent and pretty dark, I should say. But it was a lot of fun. It was a really good book if you like, kind of like I'm trying to think of like, what was that Keanu Reeves movie that came out one time?
I don't know. Whenever I hear Keanu Reeves, I automatically...
No, it was the one with was it Joe? The Fix-It, the one where he's a hitman and
Hitman. No.
No, it was like Jack. No, not Jack Reacher, but I'm sorry, guys, I'm blanking out. But anyways, it's about basically he was a hitman, but he was unretired. Someone goes off and puts a hit on him, and he comes out of retirement and does all these really violent things. It's one of the, I know Keanu Reeves is kind of hit or miss when it comes to movies. Either he's going to be really, really good or he's going to be terrible. This one is really, really good in.
No.
It's 99%.
He's going to be bad. Just the vehicle, the film may be okay, but he's not. Can you tell I'm not the biggest fan?
It's all right, but that one is a good. But I apologize, I'm blanking on the movie name. I'm going to have to go look it up.
Well, as you look that up, have either of you read Demonic? That first issue that came out recently from Image.
No, I did not.
Because that, I think, is another one of these crime genre blenders, right? It's a crime comic. I haven't read it yet. Another one on my to-read list. But there's something else. I guess the supernatural is a part of it.
That seems to be a common trend recently, is the supernatural or horror being put into crime comics.
Right. Like Weird Detective.
Yeah, I mean, that, the Black Market Affairs.
Yeah. Or Black Monday Murder.
Monday Murder, sorry. There's a lot. I wonder what the reasoning behind all that coming together right now is.
Oh, that's it. Okay. You've seen the movie John Wick, right?
Oh yeah. John Wick.
Yeah. It's kind of that one was kind of similar to that, but
okay.
Yeah, I've also noticed a trend that a lot more crime dramas are adding supernatural elements to it. Now you have to solve not only the crime but also supernatural type crime. Like what was it, Magic that Black Magic that did a similar book on that one.
Oh yeah, the Rucka.
Yeah.
Okay, that's another good example of supernatural.
Yeah,
crime.
I just thought of it just now, and I was like, it's like, darn it, we should have talked about that one. But yeah, that's kind of similar, where they have a whole division of cops that solve black magic murders, and stuff like that. But a lot of books are starting to come out now with like Black Monday Murders, where there's very supernatural something going on. We may not understand what, but something's going on, and I guess it's just kind of a new way of telling a story instead of just a typical crime stuff. And with comics, you can do crazy stuff,
Yeah, definitely.
And I guess that's why they're taking it, because it is kind of a recent, at least to me it's recent anyways, where they're using supernatural villains to make, guys have to go investigate it and use traditional detective skills to try and solve it. And then you don't see a lot of just true crime comics anymore that are just specifically just crime comics, not something either superheroic or...
Well, I mean, you see them,
yeah,
but they're just not as... I mean, like, for instance, these two Titan titles that I've mentioned.
Yeah.
I mean, those are good examples of, more straight down the line. I mean, I'm assuming. Or something like, the Fade Out, right?
Oh, the Fade Out, the Fade Out is
another
a good one.
Straight down
and
the
the
line.
Fix is one, but you don't see them as much anymore.
Well, that's comedy, too.
Yeah, it's also
it's
very comedy, yeah. But you don't see a lot of this traditional stuff as much anymore. They seem to mix it up with something else.
Well, I mean,
that's not a
of it,
bad thing.
There's a lot of it out there. I just don't think that it gets as much attention. You know,
That may be true.
Now this is. I guess it's not a recent. Well, no, it's definitely not a recent story. But there's a new edition of this that just recently came out, and this is Joshua Hale Fialkov's Tumor. I don't know if you guys
I haven't read that one yet, but I've heard of it.
No.
Yeah, that came out. I know it came out in installments that you could get through Kindle back in, I think, 2013, maybe 2012 as well. And then they came out in 2013 with a full book version of it, so you could get the various issues or installments of it. I think, and again, I think it's through Kindle, and then so you could buy it through Amazon. And then the book came out 2013, I think, because we talked about it on a show back then where we were looking at recent crime comics. But now, and I think it's Oni, is coming out with a new edition of Tumor. And that is more, let's say, from what I remember, straight crime. Now, it deals with other issues. I mean, there's definitely a psychological element to that. I mean, it's called Tumor, so, the protagonist has cancer. So there's that question as to, are things that are happening actually going on, or is this something going on neurologically with him? So there's that question. But, the whole psychological part is part and parcel of crime stories.
Yeah, definitely.
So, the whole question, yeah.
Yeah, especially comes with the state of the detective and stuff like that. What's his deal? Why is he trying to solve all these crimes? And yeah, you want to know about all these characters and even their little crazy stuff. And it's very much into the crime drama and tells a human story while you're getting something interesting like solving a murder or whatever. It's like,
now here's a question for you, okay? Because earlier we were playing around with definitions, and you were pointing out whether you call them superheroes or not, or superhero-ish. Your definition of heroes in certain crime stories, are those that are like infallible, who always count to do the right thing.
Yes.
Let me ask you this: can you have a superhero, by your definition, in a crime noir narrative?
No.
Okay.
Not by my definition.
I
no.
agree. Because I think, part of that convention is that you have an anti-hero.
Yes.
And, some people think, and I've told students this, that an anti-hero is not someone who is against the hero. That's called the antagonist.
Yeah.
But no, an anti-hero
I've never
is
had
still...
anyone tell me that. That's awesome.
It's still a hero, but someone who definitely has his flaws.
Right.
Someone who could be potentially corruptible. Right?
Yeah.
Someone who has qualities that aren't admirable, especially qualities that define their job, which in this case is being a detective.
Exactly.
Or an investigator.
One of my favorite anti-heroes, the Punisher. He's not a superhero. He goes into superhero books, but he's not a superhero. He kills people. And has no regrets about it. One of my things about being a superhero is you save everyone. He wants to kill everyone. Even Wolverine, who is one of my favorite superheroes, he goes out and kills people. He's on a superhero team, but he is not a superhero. He's a hero, but he's not a superhero.
I think because of his abilities, that automatically makes him a superhero.
Well, there is things that make him super, but yeah, there's...
He's a super anti-hero. There you go.
There you go.
We'll get really nitty-gritty here.
But yeah, and I agree that... noir comics, I think, are exactly the same way. These characters are maybe, for lack of a really terrible term, but they're more human in the sense because they can be led astray. They can be corrupted. They can, that's why we probably like them more. Is they're much more realistic to people that we may know. Or maybe not know, thankfully. But yeah, they can be led astray, and sometimes they're out just for their own benefit, and not necessarily for the benefit of others, like solving the crime. They're just more out to save themselves.
Right. Well, on the topic of the noir crime, were you guys fans of Scalped?
I don't think
Jason Aaron's Scalped from Vertigo.
I missed that one. No,
really? Oh my God. Okay. Vertigo, they do their deluxe editions, right?
Yeah.
And those are always nice. I always talk them up on the podcast because I really like them. And in fact, I was looking over right across from me, Sweet Tooth from Vertigo, deluxe edition, volume 1.
Oh,
or
nice.
book 1. So,
Yeah.
I mean, that's the kind of thing that they do. About a year ago, they started to collect, maybe a little more than a year ago, Scalped in these deluxe editions. So, I mean, you can get the trades, but you can get these nice deluxe editions now because they're being collected or have been. I don't think they're finished. Maybe I'm wrong there, of Scalped. And it's really good because basically it takes place on an Indian reservation, right? Native American reservation. The federal government knows that there is corruption going on with, oh God, it's been a while since I've read this, and I can't remember who is the leader of, or the chief of this reservation. And he, of course, has a casino, but he is using the casino for nefarious purposes. And the federal government bring an agent in. Now, the agent is Native American, and he actually is from that tribe.
Oh, wow.
And so it's and I'm even blanking on his character's name. The thing is, I've written about this before. Damn it, why am I blanking? It's been a while. But he is charged with going in and trying to find proof that he can bring back to the feds that, oh God, Red Crow. Red Crow is the chief, right? I believe that's his name. That Red Crow is actually corrupt. So, you go in with this traditional bad guy, Red Crow. But then as the series develops, you start to see a part of him where you can understand where he's coming from. You still don't like him, but you begin to empathize with him. And then, oh God, something Horse, and I can't remember his name, who comes in to investigate, right? The federal agent who's Native American. He comes in, and he's definitely corruptible because he becomes addicted to, I believe it's heroin.
Oh, wow.
Through the femme fatale, who is the daughter of Red Crow. And it's classic noir narrative is what it is. But it's set within the reservation context.
I'm going to have to look for this one. This sounds amazing.
Definitely worth checking out. And Jason Aaron and the artist... he's the same artist. I'm blanking a lot today. Who is
I understand.
doing?
I'm kind of doing it too.
the goddamn.
Oh my
Guerra.
God.
Is it Guerra? R.M. Guerra?
Yeah, I got the comic book over here for the goddamn.
Yes. So it's that same team that brought us Scalped. Am I correct?
Yeah, it's R.M. Guerra.
Yeah, exactly. So, something you should definitely...
I'm going to go find that one. That sounds amazing.
I mean, I can't believe you guys hadn't heard of it.
No, I'm feeling like we need to go yell at Freddy or something, or maybe Sabrina.
Yeah, well, Freddy, he's known for horror. I don't know if he is up on his crime.
No, usually probably not. But, man, if you need some really good horror books, he can find you some.
And he would know the obscure stuff. So we definitely have to have him on next month's
Definitely,
episode.
I will.
And he, unless, the last minute he decides he wants to slide
I'll drag him here for you.
Well, Dragon, because this is up his alley. He'll talk The Strain. Was it a new? Just for a preview of next stuff, they have a new comic book on The Strain.
Is this a teaser for next month?
For the next month, we'll talk about The Strain, Mr. Quinlan, the Vampire Hunter, which if you're up to date on any of the Strain comics or the book or even the television show, Mr. Quinlan is this vampire hunter he's a real vampire that kills other vampires, and what's his history? And they just put out a comic book trying to talk about it.
See, I have not read any of The Strain.
So The Strain, I pretty much keep up with the comic books. I haven't read the books. I just bought them recently because I think I want to do it. The TV show I keep up periodically, but I really like it. And it's if you don't like the zombies, give the vampire apocalypse a chance. And it's really interesting way of all that stuff. But you got these crazy characters like Mr. Quinlan, who is a vampire, and you'd think he'd be on the side of the vampires, and he's not. He's out to kill all the vampires. And he will make deals with the normal humans because he wants to kill vampires. And so it's an interesting book, but that's a time for another month.
Well, maybe I can use that as a segue into, again, looking forward to what we do next month, and that is focus on Halloween, specifically horror. comics. So, and that'll give us a lot to talk about there. But yeah, we've been talking for quite a while. In fact, more than I thought we would.
Nice.
on crime comics. Any final words on crime comics in general, or any particular title that you wanted to mention before we go?
Make sure you go read the fix. I mean,
yes, I've got to read the fix.
I tell you to go read the Black Monday Murders. It's really dark.
Definitely,
if you're a friend
definitely
of,
good. Worth checking out.
If you love the movie Seven, then you'll love Black Monday Murders.
Right. Yeah. So I want to thank you guys for being here this month and talking about the crime comics, and also, speculating with me a bit about the changeover in ownership of what had once been collected. It's now Valhalla. So we look
tell
forward
them to tell me what your definition of a superhero is, because I would love to hear that.
Oh yeah. Wait, me or
no? Tell it's like tell the podcast. Just go up on the website. Tell them what your
you're
definition.
Speaking to our listeners.
Yeah, tell them what your definition of the.
I was about to get to that point, how people can get in touch with us. So.
Oh no, sorry, I jumped the gun.
You jumped my. You jumped my segue. Thank you very much, my friend.
Yeah,
okay, so you cannot be on next month's show. Okay, it's like you're in timeout.
I'll have to be in timeout.
but no, we'll talk about horror next time, and I hope we can talk more about this. New shop, the new regime, if you want to call it that, and the possibilities there, because there are going to be some changes here, and I'd like to talk to Dave about what we can do as a podcast with the shop here.
Nice.
So that's great. And what I've been talking about is the shop Valhalla Games and Comics.
Valhalla Comics.
Valhalla Comics?
Yes, Valhalla.
Yes.
Think about the North
Gaming Comics.
Heaven. Yep.
It is at 3100 Independence Parkway in Plano, Texas, the corner of Parker and Independence. So if you're in the area, come on in and say, hey, we heard you guys change names and new owners. We want to help out by buying tons of comics.
Yes.
They like that. And if you go into the shop and say, hey, I heard about you guys on the Comics Alternative, can you give me a discount? They probably won't, but it wouldn't hurt. Okay? So say that. Tell them the two guys.
But they can find you some awesome comics. So.
Definitely. And if you want to get in touch with us, such as Craig was trying to suggest, and inform us of your definitions of superhero and whether or not someone like the Spirit is a superhero, or other detectives like Columbo, I don't know where that came from, is a superhero, then get in touch with us and let us know your thoughts of crime comics, super and otherwise. If you go to our website, comicsalternative.com, you'll see that you could leave us a voice message through SpeakPipe, and it's easy to do through your computing device, whether it be a desktop or mobile device. So just leave us a message that way. Or if you're a little on the old-fashioned side, then pick up the phone and dial, maybe even rotary, 4153-COMICS. That's 415-326-6427. If you do reach us on a rotary phone, we'd like to know that. Or you can email us.
Look up Columbo and a rotary phone.
You can email us at 2guys@comicsalternative.com. You can contact me directly. I'm Derek at comicsalternative.com. You can also find us all over social media, places like Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Google+, Goodreads, Pinterest, and YouTube. You can subscribe to the podcast through iTunes. You can stream us on Stitcher. You can find us on TuneIn. You can now listen to the podcast on Spotify and iHeartRadio. And if you're an Android user, on Google Play Music. But you can find every single one of our episodes from the podcast, as well as the reviews and the comics-related commentary that we post on our blog, simply by going to our website, which is comicsalternative.com. So we do like to hear from you. Let us know what you think about these on-location shows, and we will be back in here next month to talk about horror.
Yes.
So thanks, guys.
Thanks for having us.
Hopefully I'll be here next month.